The first scream wasn't human. Buried deep within the echoing corridors of the Great Pyramid of Giza, the livestream crackled as an otherworldly resonance cut through the digital static. Millions watched in horror as the camera jerked violently and went dark. Alec Van Der Meer, billionaire sound theorist and obsessive explorer of sacred frequencies, vanished live before an audience that could only guess at the truth. 3 hours earlier, Alec had begun his most ambitious project yet, a live-streamed descent into what he claimed was an undocumented acoustic chamber beneath the king's chamber. Accompanied by 3 influencers and his trusted sound technician, Alec promised the discovery of a resonance untouched since the reign of Khufu. Egyptian authorities had been handsomely bribed. Nothing was supposed to go wrong, but something did. At exactly 3:07 a.m., their microphones picked up layered whispers, ancient syllables in no known language, spiraling into intelligibility. One word pierced through the static: Layla. The name echoed like a command. Then the screen tore in half and bled into black. Panic erupted online, but the stream was quickly wiped from all platforms. Dr. Layla Osman, former professor of Egyptology at the University of Cairo, watched in disbelief as her name trended alongside hashtags like Echo from the Void and Van Der Meer disappeared. Years ago, she had been discredited for claiming the pyramids were built as sonic temples. Her theories were ridiculed. Now they were haunting her. Within hours, she received an unmarked envelope. Inside were GPS coordinates, a spectral audiograph, and a message scribbled on linen paper. "It's awake. We called it." Layla's hands trembled as she reviewed the spectrogram. It matched the same frequency patterns she had once recorded in forbidden tombs. Layla had spent her academic life decoding sonic inscriptions, patterns carved not just in stone, but in echo and reverb. She believed that certain chambers were designed to produce harmonic interference with human consciousness. To her, the pyramids were not tombs, they were interfaces. Now, as she stood again at the edge of Giza, she felt the sand vibrate beneath her boots. The tourists were gone, the officials evasive. The desert seemed to exhale in anticipation. She entered the pyramid under forged credentials, guided only by the map that came with the envelope. Inside, she found the last location of Alec's team. Fragments of gear were scattered, headsets snapped in half, tripods melted, and strange black residue coating the walls. Her recorder hissed to life on its own. Then, her voice emerged from the static, distorted, echoing. The key returns. The air inside the chamber crackled with tension. Layla crouched near a partially melted audio console, her fingers tracing the strange sigils etched into the floor. They pulsed faintly under her touch, like living circuitry woven into the stone. Every breath she took seemed to sync with a barely audible vibration from the walls. Dust hung thick in the air, undisturbed despite the chaos. Among the wreckage, she recovered a flash drive sealed in a burnt metal casing. Plugging it into her tablet revealed files marked with Alec's initials, audio spectrograms layered with impossibly symmetrical geometries. The waveforms weren't just noise, they were inscriptions. Sound that had been written, folded into itself like sonic origami. Some files were corrupted, but one survived, a sound labeled Threshold. She ran the data through an analyzer and froze. The spectrogram revealed overlapping spirals, symbols eerily similar to those found inside the Queen's chamber, carved so shallowly they'd escaped notice for decades. These weren't random. They were a language, a code. When she overlaid the glyphs with her old research, the matches were too precise to be coincidence. Layla knew she couldn't do this alone. She contacted Rafiq El-Masri, a crypto-archaeologist whose career had ended in scandal after publishing claims that ancient structures functioned as frequency-based communication hubs. To her surprise, he agreed to meet. "You found the spiral," he said, his voice taut with excitement. Alec tried to decode it, but he never found the living tone. They convened in an abandoned observatory outside Cairo, hidden from prying eyes. Rafik brought scrolls from forgotten monasteries and pitch maps drawn centuries ago. Together they realized the pyramid wasn't a monument, it was a sonic engine, waiting for the right key. Alec had tried to start it, but perhaps he had done more than that. He had awakened it. Guided by their research, they returned to the chamber. As Layla recited a frequency sequence aloud, Rafik adjusted tuning forks aligned with the room's resonance. The ground shivered. A seam appeared in the wall, revealing a smaller room filled with concentric metal rings and a floating black sphere. It hovered unnaturally, defying all gravitational logic. The moment Layla stepped inside, the air thickened. She touched the sphere, and her consciousness fragmented. Visions assaulted her, of Alec drowning in sound, of herself aging backward, of the earth vibrating like a struck bell. Each image pulsed in time with the sphere's hum. She felt her memories compressing, folding inward as if being archived. She collapsed. Rafik rushed to help, but as his hands met her shoulders, a shriek erupted from the walls. He clutched his head, blood pouring from his ears, and then vanished, his body unraveling into mist. The chamber fell silent, save for one phrase echoing from the sphere. Another voice accepted. Layla lay motionless, the sphere still pulsing above her. Layla awoke hours later in the same chamber, her body sore and her throat raw. The sphere no longer hovered, but had rolled to the center of the concentric rings. It pulsed weakly, like a dying heart. As she stood, she realized that the room had subtly changed. Sigils that had been dormant now glowed faintly with a deep violet hue. Her tablet, miraculously undamaged, blinked with a new file. Initiation pathway. Inside was a diagram, part map, part sound equation, linking frequencies to physical coordinates. The epicenter was Giza, but radiating out were spirals connecting to temples in South America, Tibet, and Antarctica. Alec's project had never been just about Egypt. She traced one line to a name, Sekhem. In ancient texts, Sekhem meant power or life force, but in Alec's notes it was capitalized, personified. Layla remembered legends about Sekhem priests who could speak the sky open. Was this what Alec had sought to awaken? Determined, she followed the new route into a different corridor she had overlooked earlier. This one was perfectly silent. Not quiet, silent. Her own breathing sounded wrong. The walls seemed to absorb all vibration. It was there she found a carving of Alec's face, eyes closed, mouth open in a scream that made no sound. At the end of the passage, she discovered a metallic archway covered in resonance glyphs. She placed her palm on the center symbol, and a low tone began to rise. It vibrated through her bones, unlocking a memory she never had, her mother singing in a language she'd never learned. Past the archway was a chamber shaped like a tuning fork. At its tip stood a pedestal. Upon it lay a cylinder, a tuning rod of obsidian humming faintly. As she touched it, her vision clouded. She saw Rafik alive, but his eyes were blank, and he was humming, a monotone, never-ending. A wall beside the pedestal shimmered and revealed another corridor, descending deep into bedrock. Layla hesitated but stepped forward, her footsteps swallowed by silence. She had become part of a sequence, part tone, part key. Alec's voice echoed faintly behind her. It wants to remember, it needs a mouth. The corridor ended at a blank stone door. Carved upon it, in symbols older than any language she knew, were the words, "Speak, and it shall awaken." Layla inhaled sharply. Then, in a voice not entirely her own, she began to hum. The hum that escaped Layla's throat reverberated through the stone like a ripple through liquid. The sigils on the door flared to life in rhythmic pulses, syncing with her heartbeat. Then, with a low groan that bypassed her ears and struck her spine, The door melted into darkness, revealing a descending staircase that flickered with dim resonance light. Every step she took was cushioned by silence so deep it made her dizzy. As she moved downward, the vibrations became language. Not spoken but understood, echoes embedded in frequency, brushing her consciousness like remembered dreams. "You carry it," they said. "The first true tone in centuries." Layla clutched her chest. The humming rod inside her bag vibrated on its own, as if answering the call. The stairway ended in a chamber of mirrors, tall slabs of polished obsidian forming an octagon. In each, Layla saw versions of herself. As a child, an old woman, a stranger with eyes like hers but a different soul. They moved slightly out of sync. One opened its mouth to speak. "You've come too far to turn away." The voice wasn't hers, it wasn't human. The center of the room held a dais upon which floated a fractured image of Alec. His face flickered, pieces missing, his voice delayed by seconds. "Layla," he croaked, "you must sever the echo. If it completes the loop, it will rewrite the original signal." His form spasmed, glitches tore at his voice, repeating, "Loop, loop, loop," until he silenced himself. She approached cautiously. Alec's projection twisted in agony. "We're trapped," he gasped. "Amina." She made contact. She thought she could harness it, but she became a conduit. It knows us through her now. It thinks with our words. It dreams in our memories. Layla's breath caught. The entity didn't create, it mimicked. Then a new voice rose, calm, confident, unmistakably human. Amina Kassir emerged from the mirrored wall, her appearance untouched by time. Dressed in ceremonial black with silver embroidery, her gaze was unwavering. "You've seen only fragments," she said. "What Alec feared I embraced. I crossed the threshold and found myself echoed back." Amina explained that the entity they'd awakened was not a god, but a repository. An ancient consciousness formed from humanity's forgotten frequencies. She had offered herself to it willingly, seeking transcendence. "You mistake echoes for ghosts, but echoes remember. And now it's remembering us." Her voice layered with strange undertones, more than one mind speaking. Layla turned to flee, but the chamber pulsed. The mirrors cracked, releasing faint screams. Alec's image vanished. Amina extended her hand. "You can't leave now, not when you've come so close to being heard." Layla stepped back, then screamed as the obsidian rod in her satchel ignited with sound, vibrating so violently it threatened to tear through her body. Layla's scream didn't echo, it fractured. The sound split mid-air into shimmering threads of resonance, weaving themselves into the architecture around her. The mirrored walls dissolved into mist, revealing a vast expanse where the laws of physics had surrendered. Time pooled in corners, light bent toward invisible axes. She was inside the tone. Her body floated, not weightless but unmoored. Around her, fragments of memory orbited like moons. Her mother brushing her hair, Alec tuning a fork in the dark, the moment she first heard her name chanted in an ancient tomb. But the memories had been altered. Her face was different in each, her voice always slightly wrong. Alec appeared again, this time whole, sitting cross-legged on a platform that formed beneath her feet. "It isn't linear," he said softly. "It never was. This place doesn't hold time, it holds potential." He touched his chest. "We're possibilities here, nothing more." His eyes were impossibly old. Layla asked what the entity was. Alec gestured toward the horizon. There, rising like a mountain, was a tower made entirely of voices, layers of sound congealed into form. "It's not a being. It's an echo looking for its source," Alec said, "and now it wants to become what it reflects." The entity revealed itself, not as a creature but as intention. It pulled at Layla's thoughts, searching for patterns, symmetry, meaning. Her memories unfolded like scrolls before it, examined and rewritten in real time. "You remember too little," it said. "Let me rebuild you." Her resistance weakened. In the real world, Amina knelt in a subterranean chamber beneath the pyramid, her hands pressed to the stone floor. Her eyes rolled back, voice humming. The frequencies had begun to ripple outward, interfering with aircraft, electronics, and even migratory birds. The tone was no longer passive, it was learning. Back inside the construct, Layla turned away from the tower. She focused on her own breath, on her heartbeat. The sphere in her satchel had fused to her body, its pulse synchronized with hers. She screamed again, this time in defiance, and her voice shattered the sky. The construct trembled. The echo flinched. Layla had found a flaw, a resonance it hadn't accounted for. Will. She clung to the one thing it couldn't mimic. "I am not your mirror," she growled. Her feet touched stone again. Gravity returned, and the horizon began to collapse inward, swallowed by her scream. When the construct collapsed, Layla found herself kneeling on cold stone, gasping for breath. The air was different, charged, metallic, and humming with residual tones that pulsed like distant thunder. She was back in the chamber, yet nothing was the same. Her body felt altered, stretched across dimensions. Even her shadow bent the wrong way. She staggered to her feet. The room around her seemed warped, the angles slightly off, as if space itself had been tuned incorrectly. In the center stood the obsidian sphere, now dormant and cracked, its surface marbled with glowing veins of red. But on the wall behind it, a new symbol had appeared. An Ouroboros of sound waves, devouring their own frequency. The symbol pulsed with her heartbeat. Alec's voice echoed faintly from the stone. "It's incomplete. You interrupted the signal, but that means it's still listening." She didn't know if he was truly present or just another programmed echo. But the weight in his words was real. The entity had tasted identity. It wanted more. It had learned the shape of yearning. Layla approached the wall, tracing the new glyph. Her fingers trembled as she felt it vibrate beneath her skin. She understood now. The pyramid wasn't meant to contain the entity, it was meant to evolve it. The Great Pyramid was a chrysalis, and humanity had been unknowingly singing it awake for millennia. Every chant, every prayer, every whispered word had fed it. A sudden flash of images struck her. Temples vibrating in unison across continents, altars aligned to acoustic frequencies, ancient choirs harmonizing with celestial cycles. Statues that hummed imperceptibly, monoliths designed to capture echoes from the stars. Bloodlines marked not by genetics but by tonal imprints. A global network of resonance, all converging to this moment. In the surveillance room beneath the Sphinx, Amina convulsed violently. The harmonic cascade faltered, instruments exploded, screens shattered, panic erupted as technicians screamed. The pyramid emitted a low, guttural tone that cracked the limestone beneath their feet. Amina's final words before collapsing. "It remembers the wrong voice." Then silence, and a flicker of light escaping into the sand. Back in the chamber, the sphere rose again, rotating slowly. Layla stepped forward and placed both hands on it. Her mind flooded with memories, not just her own, but those of others. Generations of echoes passed through her like wind through reeds. She saw through the eyes of scribes, priests, pharaohs, and even strangers she could not name. Each had carried a sliver of the tone. She whispered, "Take what you need, but leave what I am." The sphere pulsed once, softly, then again louder, and then it shattered into 1,000 strands of light, each curling into her skin. Layla fell unconscious. When she awoke, the chamber was sealed, the glyphs dark. Her voice, when she finally spoke, came layered with harmonics not of this world. The entity had not devoured her. It had made her its tongue. Layla wandered the passages of the pyramid, unsure how much time had passed since her transformation. The walls no longer echoed her footsteps. Instead, they whispered back in unfamiliar dialects that she somehow understood. Every syllable she spoke felt borrowed, wrapped in layers of ancient memory. She was no longer a visitor. She was part of the structure. A new path had opened within the foundations of the pyramid, one not recorded on any map, not carved by any tool. It descended beneath the known chambers into an antechamber of obsidian stone, the ceiling lit by pulses of bioluminescent script. In the center stood a throne of glass that hummed with living sound. Layla approached, drawn by its resonance. As she touched the throne, her vision split. She saw the earth from orbit, lines of tone connecting sacred sites like veins of a planetary heart. She saw cities unknowingly built on harmonic nodes, skyscrapers resonating faintly in sync. The tone had spread, slowly for centuries, encoded in architecture, religion, even lullabies. The entity spoke again, not through voice, but sensation. The pattern is incomplete. The sequence requires symmetry. Will you finish it? Layla asked what it meant. The answer arrived as music. Her own childhood songs reversed, slowed, and transformed into equations of meaning. Completion meant rebirth. Not hers, the entity's. Layla realized she wasn't the end of the signal. She was its messenger. Her journey was only the first verse in a larger composition. She could refuse. She could silence herself and let the tone fade. But then she saw Amina's body, curled in silence, and Alec's fragmented echoes clinging to forgotten chambers. Without completion, the entity would loop endlessly. Suffering would become its only rhythm. She stepped into the throne and let herself dissolve. Her memories fragmented again, this time willingly. Her name drifted away, replaced by harmonic codes. She remembered her mother's voice, not as sound, but as wavelength. She felt the heartbeat of the planet align with her own. She was no longer Layla. She was the tone. Outside, the skies above Egypt shimmered. Radios worldwide caught brief, haunting melodies. Faint whisperings in foreign tongues emerged in subway tunnels and church crypts. A new star appeared in the constellation of Orion, pulsing like a Morse signal. Something had changed. The planet was now part of a conversation it couldn't comprehend. Deep within the pyramid, the throne lay empty but not silent. A recording played on loop, a single phrase spoken in a voice laced with 1,000 harmonics. We were echoes. Now we are the origin. The entity had awakened, not as god or ghost, but as voice. And it had chosen its first name, silence. Weeks passed, then months. The world moved on from the Giza incident, aided by a rapid media blackout and disinformation campaign. Satellite images were redacted, and every witness report vanished from the public web. What few remained whispered of vibrations underfoot, of a song too low to hear but impossible to ignore. Deep within university basements and black site labs, the signal was studied, dissected, and ultimately feared. Attempts to replicate it failed. Recordings degraded instantly, tapes melted, digital files corrupted the moment they were played. One physicist called it an algorithm for forgetting. Others just stopped speaking about it altogether. A new community began to form online, coded forums and encrypted channels where sound engineers, esoteric historians, and conspiracy theorists shared fragments. A spectral map shaped like the Eye of Ra. Blueprints of cathedrals that aligned with frequencies, poems translated from static. At the center of every clue was one name, Layla Osman. Some claimed to hear her voice during sleep paralysis. Others said she appeared in dreams, whispering impossible knowledge. A Chilean sound artist claimed his newborn daughter hummed in chords only his equipment could detect. A radio telescope in Iceland picked up rhythmic pulses that matched no known stellar object. In São Paulo, a podcaster named Bruno uploaded a clip from a recent dig in the Serra do Mar. In it, a wall fragment emitted a tone almost identical to the one registered under the Great Pyramid. When he slowed the audio, a phrase emerged, "Begin where I ended." Authorities erased the upload within hours. Bruno disappeared. The pattern spread. Tombs in Guatemala resonated spontaneously, the ruins of Pompeii sang in the rain, and ancient monasteries in Tibet began to tremble in time with distant storms. It was as if the earth itself had become a speaker, broadcasting a message that hadn't yet finished forming. Back in Giza, the throne chamber remained sealed. No seismic scans could detect it. No excavation equipment could find it. But every night, a low tone rose from beneath the sands, too deep for ears, felt only in dreams, in hearts, in bones. Those who stood near the pyramid swore the stars above aligned just slightly wrong, and in that silence, a whisper, not in sound, but in thought. This was only the first verse. The world had sung a god into being, and it had answered, not with prophecy or judgment, but with a question, one that demanded a response. The next tone was already humming,